Watch some Oregon news.
What happened?
And then she goes, he shot himself. And I first thought suicide. And she goes, he found the gun under my seat and pulled the trigger. Apparently it's an accident. It was a total accident.
Coup in Congo earlier this year.
So that story was just about some teenager found a handgun underneath his mother's SUV and pulled it out and pulled the trigger and ended up shooting himself. And that's the extent of that whole story. This is a wild story. So there's a Congo, in the Congo there was a coup attempt, and the people that was involved in the coup attempt, I want to say this guy right here, was from Utah.
Prosecutors called for 50 people, including a West Jordan man and 2 other Americans, to face the death penalty. Now, the defendants face several charges, including terrorism and murder. 6 people were killed during the coup attempt, led by opposition figure Christian Malonga in May. It targeted the presidential palace. Malonga was shot and killed while allegedly resisting arrest. Malonga's 21-year-old son, Marcel, played high school football with 21-year-old Tyler Thompson Jr. while living here in Utah. They and 36-year-old Benjamin Zalman Polan are the 3 Americans on trial for their roles, allegedly, in the coup.
So somebody from Utah was a part of the coup in Congo? What? That seems crazy. Here's another thing going on in Utah. A husband arrested after a St. George woman was found dead.
Still trying to put together clues of a St. George woman who was found dead in her home last night. Police also say that the husband, who has been arrested, was already on a conditional release for a domestic violence incident in July. Police were called around 8:35 p.m. to a 2-story...
That's crazy that guy right there is a reporter. Like, is that the... Don't you need a tie or something? And... Okay.
According to police records, on July 25th, Nikki Sampson said her husband grabbed her and threw her onto their bed, then placed his knees on her arms to pin them down and pulled on her hair. Eric Sampson, who pled not guilty, was released the same day on the condition that he not commit any other offenses.
And answering yes to one of the first 3 questions is an immediate referral to the Dove Center.
Questions like, has your partner ever used a weapon against you or threatened to kill you or your children? Or do you think they might try to kill you? Sampson remains in the Purgatory Correctional Facility in Hurricane, while police are still trying to find answers in this case.
There's another. Here's the governor of Utah.
When I was a kid, I went to work for my uncle, and he had a construction company, and we were doing some work. And one day he gave me an opportunity. He said, "Hey, we need to go. We've been hired to tear down a barn in Fairview, the small town in central Utah where I grew up." And he said, you and a couple others will go down and take care of tearing this building down. It was an old barn falling apart, and I was so excited. Look, there's fun, and then there's getting in a backhoe and knocking a building down fun. It was such an adrenaline rush. I just have to tell you, those walls are knocking down, and it didn't take us long. I mean, in a matter of just a few minutes, it was just a pile of rubble. Tearing things down is really easy. The dopamine hits. It is so much fun, and it turned out I was pretty good at it.
Here's the guy he's running against, Brian King. So it was Spencer Cox versus Brian King.
Mr. Governor, my commitment is to work towards reducing everyday costs, placing the interests of you, the everyday Utahn, front and center. Second, the area of healthcare freedom raises deep concerns. Bills limiting individuals' rights to make personal healthcare decisions have been signed into law with little resistance from your governor. Utahns have stated loud and clear that they value autonomy, with 86% of Utahns believing that individuals and doctors should be in charge of their health care decisions, not politicians.
Okay, so that's the politics. Let's see. Here's The same story.
After a 47-year-old woman was found dead inside her home. New Special Sheriff Park is looking into the woman's husband who was arrested overnight. Sheriff, what have you found?
And Ashley, 50-year-old Eric Sampson, was already facing a domestic violence-related charge involving his wife when his husband grabbed her, threw her on the bed, pinned her arms with his knees, and pulled her hair. She said after she got away and ran to the backyard and called police, he then threw her on the ground and tried to restrain her. Now, Eric was scheduled to appear in court on October 30th in that domestic violence case. He is now being held without bail for murder.
Then there's a pedestrian that was killed in Ogden, hit and run. This is a terrible story, but it's actually incredible because they find out who did it.
700 block of Washington Boulevard. Police tell us a 58-year-old man had been trying to cross the street outside of a designated crosswalk when he was hit by 43-year-old Joshua Eastep. According to police, Eastep was later arrested at his home and was found with 2 baggies of meth. He allegedly told officers he fled the scene because he was scared. The victim in this deadly hit and run has not been identified.
So they actually protected the victim, I guess their privacy, I'm not for sure. But they were able to find out who did it. I mean, that seems remarkable. And let's watch some more of this Spencer Cox, because I find it incredible that this is the best that Utah has to offer. So this is the best that Utah has. We'll do the 5th one, right? What about the 5th one here? How to disagree with respect, not hate. Okay.
20.
Wait, what was this other one here? God had a hand in saving you? No, let's do the...
Students with ADHD save 10 hours studying with this Chrome extension.
But no.
In 1967, Ronald Reagan became the governor of the state of California. In his inaugural address, he talked about the peaceful transfer of power, something he described as the simple magic of the commonplace routine, which makes it a near miracle to many of the world's inhabitants. He then went on to utter an iconic phrase that would be repeated by politicians for decades to come. Freedom is a fragile thing, he said, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. Now, like countless others, I have used that quote many times, but I have a confession to make. I never really believed it. Surely, after 250 years of this stuff, we no longer have to worry about losing it. I'm not pleased to report that I actually believe it now. The first cracks in my confidence came during one of those commonplace routines of transferring power. As Lieutenant Governor of the state of Utah, it was my duty to certify the votes of the electors for the presidential election. While the meeting to do so was open to the public, it was so commonplace and routine that no one ever showed up. As I walked into the room, I was stunned to see dozens of angry protesters screaming that the election had been stolen and demanding that we violate state law and change the votes of the electors. Now, I know what you're all thinking, and you're probably wrong. This was not 2020. This was 2016, and the protesters were Hillary Clinton supporters. Now, it got far worse somehow 4 years later. With the election less than 2 months away, a friend and I were talking and lamenting about the state of our country following a summer of destructive protests by the extreme left and an extreme right that was already undermining the validity of an election that hadn't even happened yet. Isn't there something you can do, she asked. Well, that question haunted me all weekend. So I picked up the phone and called my opponent. By the way, I was running for governor at the same time that Trump and Biden were battling for the presidency. Rekindle. The popularity of the ad validated my hope that most people really do want their political leaders to uphold the values that we teach our kids, that we can disagree without hate and contempt. Isn't how far apart the average Republican and the average Democrat is on the actual issues. In fact, we're not much different than other Western democracies. The problem is how far apart we think we are. due in large part to conflict entrepreneurs in both the media. NBA fan. I'm a terrible aspiring bassist in a band. I'm a Utah. I'm an American. How about you? You see, if we truly believe that it is the only way for us to remember how to disagree without hate and contempt. In the words of Judge Learned Hand, who so eloquently stated, the true spirit of liberty is the spirit which is not too sure it is right. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which seeks to understand the minds of other men and women. And I started with a quote from Ronald Reagan. He went on to say that freedom is not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people. And those in history who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our solemn duty in our generation to once again secure the freedoms endowed to all of us from on high. We cannot wait for politicians or the media to do it. It will take real work,